Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Archana Solanki. Here are the headlines we're tracking this evening. Sensex and Nifty end with marginal gains after hitting 7-month lows yesterday. Mid-cap index sees a sharp recovery. Financial stocks also rebound. Indian rupee remains under pressure, hitting another record low in today's trade. $1 is now worth almost 87 rupees. Indian currency fails to hold early gains despite overnight weakness in the dollar index. Government sources say Indian refiners will not procure Russian oil from ships sanctioned by the United States, but also play down any immediate impact on supplies at least for 2 months. Crude oil prices are up over 9% since the start of the new year. Insurance regulator nudges large companies to go public. Sources say parent entities like HDFC Bank, Bajaj Finserv, Tata Capital and SBI likely to submit listing plans to the insurance regulator by the 31st of January. That's an exclusive. Government clears minority stake sale in 5 public sector banks to raise 10,000 crore rupees. Sources say Central Bank, UCO Bank, Punjab and Sindh Bank, Bank of Maharashtra and Indian Overseas Bank set to dilute stake and raise 2,000 crore rupees each. Industry flags multiple concerns over the draft data protection rule, says it is cumbersome to seek consent from existing users for personal data collections, called for detailed guidelines to implement parental consent for those aged below 18. Israel and Hamas inch closer to a ceasefire deal even as the Israeli army continues to pound Gaza. At least 18 people killed overnight. Incoming US President Donald Trump says a deal may be hammered out by the end of the week. Wildfires rage in Los Angeles for the 7th straight day. Firefighters brace for potentially dangerous winds that can amplify the fires, with potential losses estimated at $200 billion. This is the costliest blaze in the American history. Pure fiction. TikTok denies a Bloomberg report that claimed Chinese government was considering selling the platform's US operations to Elon Musk. The US Supreme Court may soon uphold a legislation that bans TikTok in the country unless its Chinese parent sells its stake. The BCCI could soon treat cricketers like corporate executives. Indian Express reports the cricket board is considering performance-based variable pay after recent test series losses to New Zealand and Australia. All right, let's start with the market action. Sensex and Nifty ended with marginal gains. After yesterday's brutal sell-off, Sensex gained nearly 170 points. The Nifty gained 90 points after hitting its lowest level in 7 months yesterday. Mid-cap saw a sharper pullback. The mid-cap index gained over 2%. Financial stocks led the rally with Nifty Bank index gaining nearly 700 points. Prashant Nair is here with a market wrap.
Well, the backdrop was a little better as we came into trade this morning. Not another day of rise in the dollar, yields, oil prices, all a little well behaved as compared to, of course, the picture yesterday morning. And I think the market here, having been sold down quite a bit in the last 3-4 days, indices had come off between 3 and 4.5%. There was that room for a bounce, and bounce we got across indices. So the Nifty up on your screen, the Nifty Bank, a much bigger bounce, although their gains were paired towards close last 30 minutes. Mid-cap and small-cap indices between 1.5% and 2.25% gains coming through on those two. Remember, these indices had fallen between 3 and 4.5% yesterday. I'll start with the Nifty moves and what was up. So the Adani Group stocks, many have basically halved, and these stocks came back strongly, between 8 and 18%. So on the Nifty, Adani Enterprises and Ports made their presence felt. Hindalco, NTPC, Bharat Electronics, all old economy, infra kind of names really. There was one exception, Shriram Finance on the Nifty, which participated. Downside, HCL Tech, big casualty, elevated earnings expectations going into the numbers. And of course, the numbers per se on their own were not bad, but fell short. HUL, Apollo Hospitals were the other two. In the broader market, after a long time, advances outnumbered declines. Mazgaon Dock was the top volume-led gainer. PFC, NTPC Green, so PSU is looking good. Names like Electra, recent listing, Transrail, Piramal Enterprises, big gains. Goldium, the lab-grown diamond maker. Motilal Oswal Financial Services, Bandhan, Tejas Networks was another one. which came up very nicely. Losses in the broader market coming through in Angel One, K Fintech, Capital Market Plays, HUL, Shakti Pumps, LTI Mindtree, United Spirits, Zentech and MedPlus were some of the losses which really came through. I mean, it's a small reversal of the big everything down kind of the day we had yesterday, and we had a bit of a reversal, not very large, but some reversal that we've had today. I mean, for the market to recover in a real way, you need some base building, and for that, the global environment needs to be conducive, which I think we're not very sure of with what just a few days left to go for the 20th of January when the incoming President Trump takes over. Back to you.
Right, thank you, Prashant, for that. On to the money market action now. A day after recording its steepest fall in nearly 2 years, the Indian currency weakened further today. It ended at yet another record low against the US dollar, underperforming other emerging market currencies. $1 is now worth nearly 87 rupees. Lata Venkatesh is here with a wrap of the day's action.
Yep, that was the story of the rupee. Started higher but lost all its gains in a couple of hours and ended at a fresh low of 86.63. Now, the rupee started higher because the dollar was weaker overnight. The index fell from 110 to about 109.5.6. So all emerging market currencies recovered a bit, but there was such persistent dollar buying, mostly by funds, of course. The Reserve Bank was supplying, but the intervention was kind of tepid. It was not trying to protect any level like yesterday, and therefore the rupee gave up its early gains. Now, the attitude to the rupee was extremely well summarized by one of our guests from Goldman Sachs. He said that the dollar is not weakening anytime soon. Higher for longer is how they see the dollar because of a very strong US growth. A second point, the Indian rupee was outperforming other EMs, but it started losing because the Indian growth story became a little dull. For the rest of the year, they do expect that the rupee will go towards the 87 or 88 mark. It depreciates, but it will continue to outperform other EM currencies.
We think the dollar is going to be stronger for longer. We have just marked our forecasts in that direction. We think there's another 4-5% upside still to the broad dollar trade weighted index. So, this is a combination of continued firm U.S. growth, U.S. exceptionalism, and, shifts that are occurring on the rate side, but also tariffs. Tariffs are coming, and I think that's a key part of our view of dollar upside from here.
Right, India's wholesale inflation rose to 2.37% in December from 1.89% in November. The government attributed the rise to the increase in prices of manufactured items and a low base effect. Now, government data showed that inflation in food items declined slightly, led by a drop in wholesale prices of cereals, paddy and wheat. Meanwhile, wholesale prices of vegetables, fruits, milk and meat accelerated. The union government has cleared plans to dilute its stake in 5 state-run banks to raise as much as 10,000 crore rupees. Now, sources say the plan to pare stake in Punjab and Sindh Bank, UCO Bank, Central Bank, Indian Overseas Bank and Bank of Maharashtra has been cleared. Now, each bank is likely to raise 2,000 crore rupees through a qualified institutional placement. Sources say the stake sale will happen in the current fourth quarter of this financial year. Government stake in all these banks is above the 25% minimum public shareholding mandated by market regulator SEBI. Shares of JSW Energy soared after the company backed the KSK Mahanadi Power under the corporate insolvency resolution process of the IBC. The company offered almost 60,000 crore rupees to financial creditors, outbidding Adani Power and NTPC. The acquisition will give JSW Energy control of KSK Mahanadi's 3,600 megawatt thermal power plant. United Spirits fell 5% in trade after the announcement of a leadership transition as part of the firm's CEO succession plan. MD and CEO Hina Nagarajan will step down on the 31st of March to take on a new role within the Diageo Group. Praveen Someshwar has been appointed as CEO designate and will take charge from the 1st of March. On to a CNBC-TV18 exclusive. Insurance regulator has nudged large companies to go public. Now, sources tell CNBC-TV18 that parent entities like HDFC Bank and SBI are likely to submit listing plans to the insurance regulator by the 31st of January. Yash Jain is here with more. Yash.
Parent entities of particularly large life and general insurance companies are expected to submit the public listing plans of their insurance subsidiaries with the insurance regulator by January 31st. Which are these parent entities? HDFC Bank, Bajaj Finserv, Tata Capital, SBI. These are the entities which are likely to submit the public listing plan for the insurance subsidiaries. In fact, what we've been picking up is that the insurance regulator, IRDAI, had met the chiefs of some of these parent entities very recently to speak to them about their plans for listing their insurance subsidiaries. And in response to that, after the discussions, these parent entities have submitted to the regulator that they will be giving that listing plan soon, in fact, as soon as by the end of this month. Just to point out the insurance subsidiaries, the large subsidiaries that we are talking about, Bajaj Finserv's both insurance subsidiaries, Allianz Life as well as Allianz General, are unlisted. Tata Capital's unlisted insurance subsidiary is Tata AIA Life. HDFC Bank's unlisted subsidiary is HDFC Ergo. SBI's unlisted subsidiary is SBI General. So, of course, a listing plan with respect to all these large life and general insurance companies could be submitted very soon. The chairperson, just to highlight, in an old interview just about 2 months ago given to us, had alluded to this fact, saying that IRDAI is looking at age and size of insurers to draw out a list of players which are ready for IPO. They will have more intense discussions with these players, and this is exactly what has materialized.
Right, thank you, Yash, for that. Crude oil prices hovered near 4-month highs as investors weighed the impact of outgoing US President Joe Biden's toughest sanctions yet on Russian oil. Now, oil prices have surged by over 9% since the start of the new year. On Monday, the US announced sanctions on 2 oil producers, including Gazprom Neft and 183 vessels that carry Russian oil. The move could potentially cost Russia billions of dollars a month. And speaking of the fresh US sanctions on Russian oil, government sources say they will not import oil from Russia using sanctioned ships. Sources also say there will be no immediate impact on the supply. Sapna Das is here with the details. Sapna.
That's right. The government, as well as I think the refiners themselves, are not expecting an immediate impact of the fresh US sanctions on Russian ships, so to speak, at least not for the next 6 to 8 weeks. So there is a kind of a window available, or a wind down period that will be available for everyone to rework arrangements, look at a new equilibrium to source crude oil, so to speak. So down the line, basically, refiners are now going to study the market very closely. If some renegotiation is required in terms of fresh sourcing, maybe from some Latin American countries, or maybe even from the Middle East, West Asia. So, as you may look at it, that is a possibility over the next 2 odd months, so to speak. Of course, no sanctioned ship will be allowed to source crude oil to India. That's very, very clear. Now, it all boils down to basically also the pricing, the kind of crude that the refiners will be looking at, and also what happens with discounts. So basically, anything that is non-Russian at the moment appears that the discounts will not be there, or they will come down. There could also be some options as to if somebody is willing to sell at $1.60 and below. That is also something that can be considered. So various permutations and combinations will be looked at. Of course, the entire process in the long run can be disruptive if the issues that I'm talking about are not carefully addressed and not carefully handled. But as of now, at least for the next 6 to 8 weeks, do not expect a major disruption or any kind of a problem, so to speak. And also, we'll have to wait and watch and see what happens to the discounts that we have been getting on Russian oil.
Right. Thank you, Sapna, for that. Moving on, the industry has flagged multiple concerns over the draft data protection rules. Most stakeholders have called for detailed guidelines to implement parental consent for those aged below 18. Ashmit Kumar is here with more. Ashmit, tell us more about the industry's concerns.
Well, stakeholders like industry, academicians, advocacy groups, think tanks were here in full strength as they expressed their concerns on the recently released DPDP rules to the IT minister. Amongst the core concerns that have emerged is what about the personal data of existing users, of legacy users. For that, companies such as PhonePe and Paytm pointed out that giving individual notices for collecting all this data that has already been collected will be a long, tiresome process, will be a cumbersome process. Solution that they've given is that one comprehensive notice be issued to legacy users, to existing users, and unless the user chooses to opt out, the company should be at liberty to go ahead with processing of personal data. Another concern that emerged was with respect to parental consent. The DPDP rules provide for children to access online services only after getting parental consent. Number of questions raised about the mechanics of this. How will it function? What if children falsify their age? Will their access to online services be limited if the parents are not digitally aware? All these questions requiring answers. CII flagged concerns about how there's only a limited window of just 72 hours to flag the issue of data breaches before the Data Protection Authority. There were questions raised about what ideally should be defined as reasonable safeguards for security deployment for protecting this data, and also questions being raised about data localization. So clearly a whole host of issues. The minister assuring that they are fully invested in having extensive consultation, also hinting at perhaps a 15-day extension to the February 18th deadline for inviting public comments.
All right, it's time for a short break, but news and updates continue. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Israel and Hamas are inching closer to a ceasefire deal, even as the IDF continues to pound Gaza. Outgoing U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who attended the talks in Qatar's Doha, has said that a deal may be signed by the end of this week. Incoming U.S. President Donald Trump has hinted at a truce deal by the weekend as well. His Middle East envoy was a part of the Doha huddle.
We also discussed a possible hostage deal.
Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar on Monday said negotiations toward a possible release of hostages in exchange for a ceasefire in Gaza had progressed. That comes as an official briefed on the negotiations described to Reuters a midnight breakthrough in talks between the sides in Doha. The official said the text for a ceasefire and release of hostages was presented by Qatar. The session included envoys of both outgoing U.S. President Joe Biden and U.S. President-elect Donald Trump.
Israel wants a hostage deal. Israel is working with our American friends in order to achieve a hostage deal, and soon we will know whether the other side wants the same thing.
We are close to a deal, and it can get done this week. I'm not making a promise or a prediction, but it is there for the taking, and we are going to work to make it happen.
A Hamas official who asked not to be named told Reuters on Monday that discussions over some core issues for a ceasefire deal in Gaza had advanced. The United States, Qatar, and Egypt have worked for more than a year on talks to end the war in Gaza, so far fruitlessly. Trump's January 20th inauguration is now widely seen in the region as a de facto deadline. The president-elect has said there would be, quote, hell to pay unless hostages held by Hamas are freed before he takes office, while Biden has also pushed hard for a deal before he leaves.
We're pressing hard to close this. The deal we have structured would free the hostages, halt the fighting, provide security to Israel, and allow us to significantly surge humanitarian assistance to the Palestinians who suffered terribly in this war that Hamas started.
The warring sides have agreed for months broadly on the principle of halting the fighting in return for the release of hostages held by Hamas and Palestinian detainees held by Israel. But Hamas has always insisted a deal must lead to a permanent end to the war and Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, while Israel has said it will not end the war until Hamas is dismantled. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich, a hardline nationalist who has opposed previous attempts to reach a deal, denounced the latest proposals as a, quote, surrender and a, quote, catastrophe. Angry family members of Israeli hostages confronted him at a Knesset session on Monday, accusing him of abandoning their loved ones. Bloodshed continued in Gaza on Monday, where medics said Israeli military strikes killed at least 21 people. That number includes 5 killed in an Israeli strike at a Gaza City school sheltering displaced families.
From one conflict-hit region to another, dozens of Ukrainian drones struck 3 Russian cities, including Saratov and Engels, overnight. Russian authorities said that 2 industrial sites were damaged. They also claimed to have downed more than 200 Ukrainian drones and US-made ballistic missiles. Earlier, the Kremlin had warned that Russia will retaliate every time Ukraine uses US-made weapons. Wildfires rage in Los Angeles for the 7th straight day. Firefighters brace for potentially dangerous winds that can amplify the fires, with potential losses estimated at $200 billion. This is the costliest blaze in the American history. More than 300 pilots at Akasa Air have been grounded for nearly a year due to a shortage of aircraft. Now, CNBC-TV18 has accessed an email written by the pilots to the company's management complaining about the lack of flying hours. Madiha Mujawar is here with the exclusive details. Madiha, what's happening at Akasa Air?
Well, right, as you mentioned, CNBC-TV18 has accessed a series of emails allegedly written by Akasa Air pilots to the Aviation Ministry and DGCA, highlighting concerns over training clarity and lack of flying hours. Now, we learned from sources that over 300 Akasa Air pilots have been grounded for nearly a year due to a shortage of aircraft. The airline operates with a ratio of 30 pilots per aircraft, which is significantly more than the 10 to 12 pilots per aircraft seen with other narrow-body operators like Indigo, Air India Express and SpiceJet. Now, this has led to pilots losing flying allowances and missing their mandatory bi-yearly training like recency training or currency training. Now, pilots allege that bonds that they have signed while joining Akasa Air amounting to 18 lakh rupees to 48 lakh rupees for different categories of pilots is preventing them from quitting the airline despite not being able to fly. Now, we reached out to Akasa Air seeking their response on the issue. The airline maintains that its pilots have consistently provided exceptional feedback and are extremely satisfied with their roles and the work environment. The airline says it has the fastest aircraft order book in India, which is 226 aircraft in just 17 months of its operations. With a fleet of 26 planes currently, Akasa expects to receive its 27th aircraft by the end of January 2025. Now, responding to allegations on non-flying hours, the airline says that over 60% of the total 775 pilots have already started accumulating flying hours, and a vast majority is set to fly by the end of 2025. Now, taking this number into account, if the total pilot strength is 775, then 60%, which is 465 pilots, are flying 26 aircraft, which is over 17 pilots per aircraft. Now, the airline says vast majority, which is, say, assuming 90% of 775, that is 232 more pilots will get to fly by end of the year, according to what the airline has told us. Then, based on the current structure, the airline is expecting to add at least 13 planes in 2025 versus 4 planes that it received in 2024. So the total fleet expected would be 39 aircraft by end of 2025 for 90% of the 775 pilots to fly.
Right, thank you, Madiha, for that comprehensive update. Before we wrap up this edition of Business 360, here's the Growth Code, a collaborative initiative by Grow and CNBC-TV18. Our mission is to equip you with valuable insights and strategies to navigate the markets and make informed investment decisions. Today, we'll help you understand why mastery in trading isn't about capturing every move. It's about the discipline to wait for the right ones.
Even experienced traders feel the sting of FOMO. A missed breakout whispers, this could have been yours. But you know what? Chasing trades isn't mastery. It's reacting to market, not controlling your approach. Chasing disrupts your edge. It increases risk, pulls you out of your strategy, and often places you on the wrong side of the move, buying into fading momentum or perhaps false breakouts as well. True mastery comes from restraint, knowing that missing one trade doesn't matter in the long run or the big picture. Your edge isn't about catching every move. It's about only executing the best ones. FOMO doesn't define a professional trader. Discipline does. Trust your edge, be patient, and let the market come to you.